Welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm Rich Prado, your host, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading up to Appleton, Wisconsin to talk with Rick Cavaiani, owner, founder of CBT Wolfpack. Rick, how you? Oh, and I should mention, long-time listener, right? Long-time listener, first-time caller? Is that what we got going on today? Rick, welcome to the show.
Correct. Yeah, I've been listening 3 or 4 years. I appreciate you doing this. I've learned a lot from other Academy guys and tune in often.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check the date of that very first call. Was with my buddy Bob Reichman with the Scorps. I don't know if it was 4 years ago, but it's probably getting close. Probably 3.5 years by now. This year, I've taken some time off here and then jumped back on the wagon, off the wagon sort of deal. But I've been on a really good stretch here, and I think we're going to finish, probably something like, 25 episodes this year. I don't know. I'd like to get maybe 40 episodes. We might hit 30 this year by the end of the year. I'd like to try and get 40 episodes next year. But we just surpassed our 100th episode total recently. So I'd say 100 over 3 years isn't terrible. They say most podcasts don't make it to the 4th episode. So I beat that. So that's something.
Yeah.
So you're up, again, I have to pull the map out so often. You're up in Appleton, not far for you people who don't know where Wisconsin is. He's not far from Green Bay. So, Rick, instead of me talking about this, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about Appleton. Tell us your craziest Lambeau field story. Tell us about the Wolfpack. You just give us your background. Love to learn more.
Yeah, I'm from Appleton. I went to Appleton North High School. Had some a few Division I looks out of high school, but I didn't take my grades seriously in high school, so I had to go the junior college route. Which, looking back on it, I would do it again. I loved the JUCO route. I went to Madison College for 2 years, had a really good career there, and then I transferred over to UW-Milwaukee, which is the only Division I school in the state, and then pitched my junior and senior year there. And then after that, I never redshirted, so I played my first 4 years. And I had another year of school yet on my scholarship to get my degree. And at that time, a former Milwaukee player who played there before me, he was just down the road coaching D3 ball at MSOE. It's Milwaukee School of Engineering. And I came aboard that year when I was still in school at Milwaukee and was the pitching coach there. And it was a really cool experience because there was actually 3 guys on our staff, on the pitching staff, that were older than me.
That's cool.
About a year. So I never thought when I was playing that I'd ever coach. It was just kind of something that I fell into, and seeing those kids, especially those older kids, really, respect me and take my coaching, and it was just a really great experience. And then I moved back to Appleton, my hometown, which is an hour and a half north of Milwaukee, and I coached a year at my old high school. That wasn't kind of what I was looking for. And then a local college coach here in Appleton at Lawrence University, he started a travel program, which was the Wisconsin Panthers, and I jumped in with him. I was kind of his right-hand man. I was the second in command, and we started the Panthers. And we were, I think, besides R.J. Fergus with the hitters, we were basically the second travel program in the state of Wisconsin. So this is about 2009, 2010, and we grew really quickly. And by about 2012, 2013, we were going down to tournaments in Lexington, Kentucky, winning tournaments, and we were very much ahead of the game. We would go down to Milwaukee, Chicago, and we're winning, 6-7 tournaments a year.
With the Panthers still.
With the Panthers, correct. And then, from there, I think people were kind of getting tired of getting beat by a northern Wisconsin teams. I remember one Chicago tournament wouldn't let us come down to the tournaments anymore because we were winning them all the time. And by 2013, travel baseball in Wisconsin just exploded. There's other programs that came in. I mean, and there's good ones. There's the hitters, there's Sticks Academy, GRB, PTA. There's probably a dozen to 15 now, I would say.
Yeah,
that are good.
Well, let's pause there. If anybody is curious, you can go back. He's mentioned RJ Fergus. If you go to playinschool.com/Fergus, you'll get to hear the episode with RJ. Great guy. We also had Greg Reinhardt, who is GRB, on the podcast. So if you go playinschool.com/Reinhardt, you'll get to hear him. He's exploded too, hasn't he? Both those guys are great guys.
Yeah. And they both do things a little bit differently, as far as their model. But they're both have been great for the state of Wisconsin in baseball. The state, I think in 2002, when I graduated, I think there was 4 of us that eventually played Division I baseball in the state, and I went JUCO first. And I think last year there was, almost 40. So in a 20-year span, baseball in Wisconsin has just taken off. And it's just too bad too. There's only one Division I in the state, Milwaukee, where I played, and Madison, UW-Madison in the Big Ten doesn't even have a team. So hopefully at some point they'll get a team back, because we have the talent and the skill set to have a really good team in the Big Ten.
That is an unbelievable stat. That the year you went to college, there were only 4 guys in the state that went Division I. Did I hear that right?
But it's in that realm, 4 or 5 maybe.
But even regardless if it was 4 or 10, currently it's only 40. You said?
And it might be more than that, than 40.
Yeah. Let's just say it's 50. Yeah. Let's just say it's 50. Well, I know programs that send 20 guys off of one team, Division I now. So it's that tells you just sort of I think there's a lot to that story. Part of it is geography. Part of it is there's just kids go to school close to home. The majority of kids go to school within 3 hours of home. If there's only one D1 program, well, guess what? You're probably not going to send a lot of guys D1. That's really interesting.
A lot of the WEAC conference, D3 here is really strong because of that.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Only one D1, only one D2 in the entire state, and the rest of them are D3 and a couple of JUCOs, and then UW-Milwaukee mixed in there. So, the D3 ball here is really good. Yeah,
we in Virginia we have obviously tremendous Division I, but then there's a lack of D2 and JUCO, which means that the D3 baseball, like you're saying, is really good too. Because if you compare and contrast Virginia versus North Carolina, there's more options at the JUCO and D2 level, and so that bubble kid, that kid who's really good, but maybe he's like, I don't want to be the 35th guy on the roster. In North Carolina, that kid might go D2 or might go JUCO. In Virginia, he goes D3, and that's a huge benefit to that D3 program.
No doubt.
So that is really interesting about the low numbers of D1 guys. The other thing is it's population density. Like, what's the total population of Wisconsin? I'm guessing it's probably, the whole state probably has fewer people than, a lot of big cities in other parts of the country. I will be Googling that. Wisconsin population 2021. The whole state is smaller than Atlanta, man. The whole state. It's six, not even 6 million people in the entire state of Wisconsin. So that's another factor in it. That's really interesting. Anyway, so let's return to your story. You're out on the road with this club you started up, or were the number 2 guy with the Panthers, and you're going down, you're heading south, you're winning games. At what point do we transition from number 2 guy with the Panthers to saying, hey, I want to go do my own thing. I'm going to go do this Cavaiani baseball and start up my own facilities, my own teams. When does that happen?
Yeah, I started having the thoughts of doing that around 2014, 2015. We were in a really big building. We had 70,000 square feet, and our overhead was just astronomical, and we were always struggling, it seems, financially. And I just I had my son in 2015, and then my daughter was going to be born in 2017. And it was too much for me. I was working too much, weekends, nights. And I just knew with having 2 kids, I needed to give my wife some help. So I actually told her I was going to get out of the travel baseball business. So it's quite an interesting kind of turn of events. And I went into teaching. I was a parapro and kind of a glorified full-time substitute teacher at elementary schools. And so they would put me in the classroom. I could be with kindergarten one day, or I could be in special ed the next day, and I was making $13 an hour. And during that time, I started CBT just to do baseball lessons and small group lessons, just because I loved baseball and I knew I had to stay in it in some capacity, and I also knew I had to make some more money so that I could keep up with my wife and put food on the table. Yeah. And then really soon after that, basically I had a whole group of people from my previous organization that sorry, my doorbell just rang.
That's all right.
From the organization that came over and did lessons with me, and they kind of kept at me about, hey, will you coach our kids? We'll just do one team. And long story short, I just made the announcement on my Facebook page that I was doing a team. I think at the time it was 14U. And then from there, I just started getting just loads of text messages and emails and people saying, hey, if you do 10U, my son's coming over. And if you 12U, my son's coming over. And it just kind of, it snowballed from there. And the whole time, this is a 3-4 month process. And I kept showing my wife all the messages. And it was kind of one of those things, you kind of look up to the heavens and you say, hey, this is kind of what I'm meant to do type of deal. So that's kind of how my own program started. It just it happened organically. And that was 2017, 2018. And now I'm 4 or 5 years in. So it's been quite a ride.
If there's one thing I'm seeing a trend on in Wisconsin is that the size of the facilities is unbelievable. I don't know square footage on RJ's place, but I know it's huge. I've seen pictures of GRB, and I know it's huge. The place you were in that you left was huge, 70,000 square feet. Oh my gosh! And then I don't want to jump the shark here, but let's talk about the facility you're in now. Isn't it pretty big too?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. The facility that I'm in now, I rent. It's the same facility. So 2015, a trampoline park came in and took half the facility.
That's interesting.
It's called Extreme Air Trampoline Park. And then the other half is still all the turf and batting cages.
But that guy's gone. The guy that was running that, he moved out?
Correct. Yeah, so the Panthers just kind of, they went out of business within, I think it was a year, 14 months. So nobody was in there. So basically I rent it with a soccer club, and we use it. And then I have a baseball field just down the road, outdoor field, fully lidded, full scoreboard. And we actually, in September, it was turfed. So the $325,000 project of getting the whole infield is turf, the outfield is grass. And we have all the different base plugs. So we have kind of a one-stop shop for our 8U players all the way to 17, 18U, nice. which is a huge thing for our program. And it allows us to get outside longer. So we can be outside 7 months a year having that turf. And it's a lot easier for me time-wise. I don't have to drag dirt. I don't have to get clay and chalk and
cut grass.
Yeah.
Now,
it's awesome.
Do you own that field, or is this a county park?
It's an interesting piece to it. So the land is owned by the city of Appleton, but the 3 entities of USAU Sports Complex, I'm one of the 3. So I basically run and operate that field.
Gotcha.
I relate it to somebody that has a mortgage on their home. Like nobody can, you don't technically own your home until it's paid off.
Yeah.
So I don't technically own it. But I run and operate it, and if somebody uses it, they have to go through me and pay me to use it.
Well, that's pretty good deal, I guess. This sounds a little reminiscent of Nick Defendis, who I had on the pod recently out of Richmond County Baseball Club in Staten Island. Think about, when I think about, this is New York City, right? Staten Island. This guy sort of stumbles upon a partnership with the town, and he ends up with I think it's 5 fields. It's an unbelievable situation he's got going on. And same thing, he's sort of the dude. I don't think he owns it either, but he runs it, and it's his baby, and he runs tons of events out of there. Really, really, that's one of the most important pieces that facility owners. It's just so hard to lock down good outdoor fields. So that's a really good thing. Now, are you able to run tournaments and games out there?
Yeah, we do. We have 12 tournaments scheduled this next year, 10U all the way to 17U. So that's like for me, one of the great things too is to help our parents save money. We're going to host our own tournament right here in our hometown, so people can save money on hotels and travel, eating out at restaurants and things like that. So a lot of our parents are pretty excited about that. Each age group is hosting at least one. Some are having 2 home tournaments. So instead of us going everywhere and driving, people are going to come to us, which is a really nice option.
Yeah, I love that. And we've had so many guests, and there's a few tournaments that have 300 or 400 teams, and you want to go to those, and those are great, whatever. But to fall into the routine of every single weekend, all of our teams are going to drop $1,500 just in entry fee, but then we're also going to all have to get hotels, and we all have to eat out for the weekend or long weekend or week. It's just like, man, it adds up so fast. So if you're able to sort of stick in a week here, a week there, where you can have these smaller, intimate 6 or 8 team tournament, you can do that on one field easily. Easily.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we do.
And you could probably supplement. You probably get the high school down the street and say, okay, now we got 2 fields. We can go to 12 teams in the event and run it smoothly. And half your games will be on the turf, and half will be over on the high school. It's no big deal. Yeah, man, that's what a great resource to have. And turf is huge. That's amazing.
It is, yeah, and the kids love it. There's no bad hops. They're running a tournament. You need 2 guys on standby, 3 guys to prep the field in between games. Now you just got to make sure that the bases are in the right spot and the correct mount on the field, and you're ready to rock.
Yeah, make sure that both first base and third base are at 90 feet.
Yeah,
tough job. I think you can get the intern to handle that.
Yes, definitely.
Right on, man. Right on. So, beyond those events that you're going to host, what are a couple of the big ones that you're going to hit the road and go visit next summer, you think?
Yeah, every year we go to Cedar Rapids, Prospect Meadows, Perfect Game. We always do those. They usually always have good coverage there with college coaches. We do a couple PBR tournaments, the border battle we have in Boston here. We go to the Rock down in Milwaukee, PBR. I love the PBRs because they have the guys there at games. I'm not a big showcase guy. I want to see what a kid does in a game setting. So, the PBR staff is there watching live games, which I really like, and then they do write-ups on certain kids. And then we'll go down to Grand Park in Indianapolis, which is it's an absolutely beautiful facility down there.
Yeah, I've seen
We'll
photos.
go to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a good spot because there's a lot of Division I coaches kind of in that realm right through there. Ohio, a lot of D1s, and you got Kentucky down there, and so we'll go there. Those are the main ones. Last year, my 17U team went down to Greenville, North Carolina, which was cool.
Oh, for the Black Bear, maybe?
Yeah.
Prospect Select, I think.
Yeah, it was Prospect Select,
Yep.
and that was good. It was a really good competition. We played teams from all over. New York State and then North Carolina, and
that event has
everywhere.
absolutely blown up in the last few years. It's a really popular event. The other one, the one in Cincinnati, is that the one run by the Flames? Is that Jay Basil's event, or is that a different one?
Yep, those are the ones.
Right on. We had Coach Basil on the podcast, playinschool.com/Basil. That also, like you said, man, if you sort of like pull Cincinnati up on a map and draw a big old circle around it, the number of just D1 programs that fall inside the circlers, they really are well placed geographically. That's a pretty solid event to attend.
Yeah, it's nice playing at the college venues in there too, to get the kids on the campuses and stuff. That's a nice perk to those. We're
seeing I see a lot of my friends here from the East Coast, from Mid-Atlantic, who are heading over there. It puts them in front of a different crowd. Our guys here are playing in front of sort of the same old on a weekly basis, whether you're from the Carolinas through Philadelphia or whatever. You're going to see a lot of the same faces, same programs represented at those events. So you drive, whatever it is, 10 hours west, and you get to showcase your talents in front of a completely different set of programs. And you know what? Kind of smart. I think it's a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we want to get down to the Prospect Select one in Florida. I think it's can't remember which is their flagship event, but we're going to get down there in the next few years. I've heard really good things about that one.
Now, do you guys? I didn't hear you mention Atlanta.
Yeah, my group hasn't been down to Atlanta yet, but we're going to get down there here soon. We're like I said, we're in our fifth year. We haven't gotten down there yet, but I've heard amazing things about it.
Yeah, like it's one of those things that for me, it's sort of become the rites of passage. It's like the Cooperstown of the older age groups. It's fun to go to, I think, and everybody in the country's there, but everybody in the country's there. Like, you know what I mean? It's like from a strategical standpoint, your bang for your buck is really tough. You're going to spend so much money. If you don't go down there with 25 arms on the roster, you'll be short of pitching real quick. It's a tough one. It's a tough pill to swallow, man. And it's just like, whew. If you go down there with a roster full of arms, then that's the best way to approach it. That's so when you go in a couple years, think about that.
Okay.
Yeah. 20 arms at your disposal. Not even kidding. Well, listen. So I sent you some of the sort of standards, my standard questions that I've been enjoying asking people, because I love it's the same questions and we get a million different answers, which is so fun. So let's start with sort of what, sort of a softball. Not that we're not warmed up at this point, but we'll start at the top and say, hey, what book or movie, website, or resource in general do you think every coach should take advantage of?
Well, certainly sitting right next to me is my Bible. I try to read that every day. It's become a staple of my life. I joined an FCA group, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I been doing a Bible study once a week with them every Thursday, and that has really changed my life. It's a lot of college guys, a local college, the football coach there, the basketball coach there, baseball coach. And it's really cool because we go through different things and bounce ideas off each other after we read some Bible verses. And it certainly changed my perspective on a lot of things. And there's two other really good books that I've read. 3D Coach by Jeff Duke. It's actually through FCA. That's a really good one where you try to get into the heart of the player instead of just on the surface. So that's a really good one to check out. And then an older one is called Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrman. Those are 3 books that I've read that have definitely changed my perspective on things.
It was kind of funny in the back of my head when you first said the Bible. I was thinking, yeah, bestseller right there. That's
most read book in the history of the world.
That's right. I'm thinking that probably has a lot of reviews on Amazon. For somebody who's never picked up a Bible before, where do you start?
I would start with Ephesians. It's in the New Testament. It is just loaded. I think it's only 4 pages. And if you go through it, you can read it within a half hour. I mean, I just turned to it now. I've got a highlighter marker, and basically almost in every paragraph, there's something highlighted in it. So I would just tell people to start with Ephesians and go from there. It's kind of it's a gut check part of the Bible where you really got to kind of look in the mirror and say, am I doing these things? Is this something that I'm, fashioning every day to, my wife, my kids, my family, my players. And then you kind of go from there. So I've only read probably a third of the Bible. And, there's times I get into it and, I look up and it's an hour and a half in, and it just it gravitates you and pulls you in.
Very cool. If you're looking for another book that I think you'll like, we had Keith Wall on the podcast a while ago. Coach Wall's out of not Denver, but right outside of Denver, Colorado, and he wrote a book called Well Coached. Just connect with him on Twitter at CoachWall22. Great guy. But he's kind of, I forget, the last time I talked to him, he was talking about wanting to partner up with teams, travel ball organizations as a whole, as sort of like, I forget how he phrased it, but essentially like the minister of the organization, if you will. That might be a bad.
Wall, is that W-A-W-A-L-L?
W-A-W-A-H-L. So Coach Wall, okay. W-A-H-L 22.
Okay.
And his book, Well Coach, is upstairs on my bookshelf, but really might be an interesting resource for you, a good guy to connect with. And another book to throw into the mix for you. Yeah, Well Coach is the name of his book. It's subtitled A Coach's Journey. I think you'll really like that. Yeah, my neighbor got me to come over to his Bible study the other day, and this is kind of a new world for me. And I'll tell you how he got me to come. They do a beer tasting right after, so I said I'm in. So
nice incentive.
Nice incentive. Not that you're going to be able to do that with your FCA student athletes, but I think that I think the lesson there is find something that appeals to that demographic. In this case, in my case, it was the beer tasting. Find something that appeals to that demographic and sort of dangle it out in front of them and say, "Hey, come do this," and at the end you get that. So anyhow. Cool. First, you're the first person to answer with the Bible since I started asking that question. So I appreciate you doing that. Let's talk about this question around regret or failure. Tell me about a story where you felt regret or you feel like failure eventually changed the way you coach for the better.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily regret, but I think this is my 15th year in travel baseball. I played for a high school coach. His name is Bruce Erickson. His son Matt made it to the major leagues. He's actually the head coach of the Timber Rattlers in town. They're the high A affiliate of the Milwaukee Brewers. And, we won conference titles every year. I think he won 82% of his games over 35 years in high school baseball. He was the most incredible coach I've ever had, but he was tough. So this is, late 90s, early 2000s, where you could still coach hard, and hold kids accountable and get after them. And I learned a lot from him. And early in my career, I was, they say if you don't adapt, you'll die. and and kids this these days are a little bit different. Even looking back to 2010 when I started, it's different. You have to approach things different. You can't really yell anymore. You have to take a kid aside and have a conversation with them. So I think that's the thing that I've like I said, I don't regret those things, but it's more the adapting to the the environment and to kids today, how they respond to things. So I think that would be the main thing that I've changed as far as I approach things. And having said that, however, I do think kids want discipline. Kids want to be accountable. But the way you approach it, even from 2010 to 2020, 2021, is different, and it has to be, because if you don't, you're just these players.
I've said this before. Sometimes I feel like the question maybe needs to be thrown out because I feel like I get a similar answer. But then I feel like the people who are on the other end of this, listening to this with their, with their headphones in or riding down the car, I think it's good to hear a repetitive answer on this question, because if there is a young guy who's starting out and this is sort of the path he's on, and all of a sudden he's listening to this Travel Ball Talk podcast, and he hears you say this thing, and then he hears another coach say the same thing, and a third coach say the same thing. Maybe he will kind of flip his approach sooner versus later. Because gosh, I'm hearing similar answers from everybody. So for now, the question stays, I suppose. All right. So, what one piece of advice would you give someone that's just starting a travel ball organization or opening up a facility, since it sounds like you've done both?
Yeah, definitely. I think my answer is going to be like a lot of the other ones. You got to start small. We ran into the overhead problem, with my first program, the Panthers. We had a huge facility, and it seemed we worked so hard. We were working 7-day weeks every night, doing lesson after lesson, camp after camp. And we just, it seemed like every month we were like just scratching by. So it's more about what you do with, just being more efficient with the facility that you have. I don't think you need to have a huge facility. You need to have a couple cages, a place where you can, hit some ground balls, do your technique work over the winter. But just start small. That overhead killed us. I'm trying with my program, I was fortunate enough to learn, a lot of what not to do with my previous organization, and have flipped that, I call it trim the fat on a lot of things, and get rid of the stuff that, financially doesn't make sense, and then just really focus on your players. And, that's what I've tried to do. And it's 5 years in, it's worked so far.
Well, you mentioned something earlier that I think is a really good lesson from the facility standpoint is, everybody out there can make a couple bucks doing the baseball stuff, right? Like you do your lessons, you do your camps, you do your teams, you do your rentals. That's all cool. But what are you doing to generate revenue that's not the baseball stuff? That's other things. And you mentioned earlier, you're sharing space with a soccer team or a soccer organization.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that's a pretty big help to you to cover the, to cover rent each month.
No doubt. Yeah. And kind of going back to what I was saying before, at my previous organization, we had to work so much. And I having two kids, my daughter was being born. I knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing and have a family and be a father and a husband. So, you trim that fat. I work a lot less, and it's worked out really well so far.
Yeah, to kind of peel this onion back a couple more layers, when you're talking about investments. Everybody talks about diversifying your portfolio, right? I think the same needs to be said about your facilities. You need a variety of streams of income. You need to be able to generate revenue in as many different ways as possible. And I'm talking about, okay, you got your baseball revenue. Cool. Okay. Go find 15 more ways to make money with that building. Believe me, it can be done. I know it can because I've seen it with my own eyes. I know facilities that are generating revenue 25 different ways, and when you challenge yourself to sit down and figure those things out and really identify it, right? Is it merchandise? Is it setting up a yoga instructor in the morning or a CrossFit instructor in the morning when your place is empty? Is it setting up a cafe? Is it selling coffee? There's a million different ideas. The point is, go through the exercise and put some of these things into practice. And I think before we hit record, you and I were talking about a completely different topic, but this idea of like, you make a decision. Well, if it's not the right decision, just change. Just like, you implement something. If it doesn't work to suit your needs, if you bring the yoga instructor in and it's not working out, just change. Just say, hey, we're good. We're good here. Our time has come to an end. Like, you don't have to stick with bad decisions. But I would highly recommend anybody who's getting into a facility who's bringing in this overhead, find 15, 20, 25 different streams of income within those four walls, and you will thank me later, for sure. So cool. Let's ask this next question that usually opens up a can of worms, and it's been pretty fun just hearing all kinds of different ideas from coaches. So what one change do you think, if I gave you a magic wand, what one change do you think could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
Well, I have two, but the first one, so I listened to, I think you had Seth McClung on before the latest episode, and I've always thought about this too. I just don't know how the logistics would work of it. Tournament ball is just is really getting out of control. I'd love to have some sort of like a travel league where, at the tournaments, you're going to have a kid pitch Thursday and you don't want them to have to come back on Sunday or Saturday. And it's getting to be a lot. And then the other things surrounding with the tournaments, they're gouging parents an extra, $20, $25 to come in and watch their kids play. And then you got the stay and play where if you don't stay at their designated hotels, you got a fine for the organization. It's just that to me, the change I've seen, and this is my 13th year doing this, has really just gotten out of control. So I'd love to see that be channeled a little bit more. I mean, I understand people need to make their money, but we also need to make money and save money too. So I'd love to see that change. The other thing too, just real quick, and this does this for the majority of the academies, this doesn't apply to, but we have, and I'm sure this is the same around the country, but we have a lot of, like for example, we'll have a player that we've had for 3-4 years, and he's 16 going in to be 17, and they recruit the player away from us for a year, and the player's either already committed to an organization or to a college, and then the program that recruits them to play for free, they put them on their website saying that they developed the kid, and they superimpose a jersey on them, and it's stuff like that. I wish academies would respect each other a little bit more than that. But I guess those would be the two things I'd like to see changed and just to be better at and respect each other a little bit more.
Yeah, that second one is pretty comical. A kid comes and throws in one game, and and the organization, throws them up on the Twitter and the Facebook and the website, calls them an alum, and you're just like, come on, man. So that is pretty funny. But to go to your first one, this is something I would say is becoming a little more of a common theme in these conversations. This idea of let's set up actual leagues. In most parts of the country, American Legion has kind of gone away, or it's kind of a little bit different format. It's less about the recruiting process. So, if we can take these same teams that are focused on recruiting and development and put them in a league so that there's a standard schedule, I think there's a lot of upside. And, what I told Bob Reichman, because he had the same idea down there in Florida, is like, hey, go do it. Like, so, go find, 3 or 4 or 5 of these other organizations in your area and set up a league. And to go back to what I just said 5 minutes ago, set it up next year. And guess what? If it doesn't work, shut it down. No harm, no foul. No big deal, right? You know what I mean? So it's not a permanent decision. So that's my challenge to you is like, see if you can set it up. Maybe it's one league with 4, 6, 8 teams. No big deal. And, it's still, you can still go do the tournaments, make a little space for some tournaments, not instead of doing tournament every weekend, just build in space for 2 or 3 strategic tournaments. You can get down to Cincinnati, you can get down to Grand Park or whatever, and do those things. But then the majority of your summer is spent in a legitimate league with a legitimate schedule. So I think you can do it, man. That's my challenge. Go do it.
Yeah, I've got the field and the turf to do it.
Oh, bingo. Yeah. Oh, you're halfway there. Yep. You need like 5 other teams just start with 1 age group, or it could be a 2 age group thing. Who cares? Figure it out. Go do it. Next time we talk, I'm hoping to hear that you say, hey, it's done, set up. We already got the schedule in place.
I think we're going to this next fall.
Yeah, and that does bring up a good point. Some parts of the country, it makes sense to do it as a fall thing. Some parts of the country, I think I'd like to see it as a part of the summer, honestly. In this area, in my area, I'd love to see it as part of the summer. Just build in a little bit of space so that teams can still go to Atlanta and maybe, one other key event. So that's my 2 cents.
As an organization, I don't mind paying those $1,500, $2,500 tournament fees if there's college coaches.
Yeah.
But there's organizations charging $1,500 and you don't see a college coach anywhere.
Yeah.
So to eliminate those and you do a league, and I'll just call the college coaches I know and have them come up to the league.
That's right.
Bypass a lot of that stuff.
That's right. That's right. So, well, listen, Rick, this has been fun, man. I've enjoyed getting to talk to you and getting to know you a little bit. Do you have any sort of, parting words, anything that we didn't cover that you feel like you want to get off your chest or pass along to anybody who's still listening?
No, the only thing I'd say is, for people looking at doing this, and it seems every year, another program pops up. This is my 13th year. Don't get into this if you're thinking about money first, because it's really hard. If you want to do the get rich doing this, that's not. Please don't do this. This is about the kids. It's not about you. When you get into coaching, it's not about you anymore. When you're playing, it's about you. So just make sure if you do it for the right reasons. Do it because you love kids. Do it because you want to help kids, get into college and play baseball and hopefully pro baseball. Looking back, when I was a kid, I wish I had something like this because I was all, full bore baseball. So it's kind of, I'm trying to give kids the opportunities that I wanted as a kid. and just make sure you do it for the right reasons.
Very good. Very good. One last thing. I will say you can connect with Rick at CBT Wolfpack over on Twitter, or at CavaianiBaseball.com, and that's CAVAIANI baseball.com. And I will say, here's my last parting shot: $600 for a tournament on your turf. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And with a 6-team maximum. We've talked about this on this call so many times. These small events, bigger is not always better. I love it, man. This has been fun. Hey, do me a favor. Let's end the recording here, but don't hang up, man. Don't hang up yet.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Thank you.